Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Fabric Coffee session at Microsoft Fabric Cafe. I'm super excited to have another session here. Today, I have a great speaker, a great guest, actually, and we are with James Serra today. So, guys in the chat, just say where you're connecting from, if you would like, and let's just give some minutes for others to join as well. But in the meantime, I'm going to just share my slides and we can walk through the slide as usual. Today is September 13, 2025, 7 a.m. Pacific time with session number 45 at Microsoft Fabric Cafe. Uh, so we are part of Microsoft Learn community, Microsoft Learn Tech community. That's basically, a, actually a perfect and rich place for learning the things about Microsoft technologies and Microsoft landscape, Azure, and whatever that falls in, Microsoft landscape. There are no learning rooms, different learning rooms in Microsoft Learn community that you can join and meet your experts, meet your peers. Especially for Microsoft Fabric, that we have the Microsoft Fabric Cafe. You know, for those who are new here, we have weekly Fabric coffee sessions. We try to, have a consistent, plan for our weekly sessions. It happens in different time zones to just accommodate more attendees around the globe. We're almost now 5,000 members. Yeah, that is awesome number. From around the world, and we only focus on Microsoft Fabric and Power BI here, and whatever that is related to that. We basically provide learning and support to Fabric users in all levels. So it is a forum for everyone to learn, share, and grow skills together. Uh, Here are the our social accounts. First of all, the YouTube channel. Uh, with the handler of Microsoft Fabric Cafe. You can just watch or rewatch, the sessions that we had in the past or upcoming sessions. And, this session is also going to be, available immediately on the YouTube channel. However, it is the live session here that's as well. And we have also added, LinkedIn page, where we do our announcements and, it is another channel that we've got to talk with the our members. And we have two groups, two technical groups in Microsoft community, tech community, and Microsoft Fabric community that you can join there and ask your questions based on your interest. You can connect with your peers, connect to experts, and if you have any issue with Fabric or something, or you want to share your knowledge, you want to write blog or start a discussion, or even for networking, just go to those groups, sign up there, and let's start a discussion. And also the meetup group that we've got here, that we do all of the announcement of the events, of the sessions like this. And we want you please just rate the session afterward, and then we can just see how good we are doing our job. And if you have any suggestion, please feel free to add that. There's a code of conduct. When you join the sessions, thank you very much. I'm not. Thank you very much for adhering to them. I'm not going to just read them one by one. I just want to save the time for James, and I'm super excited to have him again. So our past session with Dharmendra about building scalable enterprise-ready data solution with Microsoft Fabric was in the past week, and it was a fantastic session as well. You can just go to rewatch it or watch it if you missed that on our YouTube channel. So for today we have James Serra. We had him before, last year, but today he's going to just walk us through the using GenAI on structured data to query or modify the data. And I'm Murad Abdullahi, the host of today's session. Let me invite James to the stage. Hello, James. How's it going?
Hey, good morning.
Morning. Welcome back. Welcome back to Microsoft Fabric Cafe. I think it was exactly last year, this time, no, not this date, but last year, September, that I hosted you here. And that was a fantastic one. You talked about data architecture in Microsoft Fabric, and people really, love that. I know, guys. If you missed that, if you want to rewatch it, it is not something that is going to be old or something. It is always fresh about the data architecture. Yeah, feel free to rewatch that and let us know how you think about it. And if you have any question, you can just ask, afterward and the video itself or somewhere else. Cool, James. How's everything?
Awesome. I'm looking forward to this presentation.
Yeah, awesome, awesome.
And I got my coffee.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And James, you still have your red phone. That is interesting. I,
Yeah, I
I
I
love
tell people I could make one call a month to Satya to ask important questions. I save it sometimes for customers, but every once in a while I'll ring him up and ask him how he's doing. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't work.
that is perfect. Cool, James. So one of the hottest topics, in the past 2 years, let's say, is about Gen AI and how it is going to impact our lives, or how we can make use of that in Microsoft Fabric specifically. So yeah, I think we can just hand over the station to you, guys. Ask your questions. Ask the questions in the chat. I repeat that. Ask the questions in the chat, and so it is going to just make it more, full of knowledge. The knowledge can be transferred. Maybe you have a question and it is somebody else's question as well. We can just learn together. Cool. uh, I'm gonna just hand over the session to you, James, and if there is a question, guys, I may jump in, and or it can be answered, by James, in the pauses that you're gonna have between his presentation. James, over to
Yeah,
you. And guys,
thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'll pay attention in the chat. So just enter them, and I'll make pauses along the way, and at least hopefully at least with them at the end and there.
awesome.
So a little about me. I've been doing this quite a long time. I'm quite old now. It seems I've been doing this 40 years. The it's a long history. I won't go back to my COBOL days, but along the way, I was a developer, a DBA, an architect for many different companies. Came to Microsoft about 11 years ago and have various different roles, all mostly in pre-sales, focus on data and AI. And I always make this offer for people who are into data architectures. I wrote a book, and at the end, I'll talk about how you can get a free copy of that book. A lot of customers are obviously interested in Gen AI and how they can use it on data. And so the genesis of this presentation was educating customers on what Gen AI can do for them on structured and semi-structured data. We're all kind of used to it working on text and documents, but taking it to the next level on that structured and semi-structured data. So I'm going to go through a little bit about definitions. I'm going to talk about using ChatGPT on semi-structured data, and then Microsoft Fabric. It used to be called AI skills. It's actually data agents now on structured data, and I'll demo both of those, and then I'll talk about some industry use cases as time permits. What I'm finding now is the data platform and AI worlds are colliding, and that data platform that has structured and semi-structured data now is now opening up to Gen AI, so customers can make even better business decisions with the data in there. They could save more time and money, and use GenAI as a great accelerator, just like they use it for text. Now you can use it on structured and semi-structured data on that. A little bit about definitions on here, just to level set. Is GenAI magic? Sometimes I think it is. As much as I understand how it works behind the scenes, it still seems like a bit of magic on there. We'll try to dispel some of that today, but in the end, it's an amazing technology, and and if you've seen it, it's just not even 3 years old, and we've come so far. So just very quickly to level set, we have AI. Think of that as a high level umbrella, which underneath it you have other things like Gen AI and large language models. Gen AI is generating new context, such as text, images, and videos. And then large language models is what Gen AI uses to take to generate natural language text from a certain data set on that. Different than machine learning, sometimes you call it classical AI, where you would create predictions or make or decisions based on data, but you're not generating anything new. And that's the difference between Gen AI. It's generating new text on that, and that's the big transformation or change that we've seen in the last few years. People are still using classic ML on that, but more and more they're using Gen AI either solely or in combination of classic ML. OpenAI, that we've heard so much about, it's an organization that's been around for about 10 years now, and Microsoft heavily invested in them, and they were the first to create the popular Gen AI models and built a bot on top of those models called ChatGPT. And that's all they are. That and Copilot are bots on generative AI models. One of those models being GPT, and allows you to interact and ask questions and get generative text answers in there. I say large language models mostly through this presentation, but there are smaller models. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different models now. But most people talk about LLMs in there, even though you could replace them with smaller models for cost reasons. And then prompt engineering is the ability to ask a question in a way that gets a good answer. And that's a really important part of using Gen AI is asking the question in the right way to get the right answer, because Gen AI can do a great job of coming up with an answer that's completely wrong, but it can do it very confidently. So you really have to understand how Gen AI works and LLMs work in order to ask the question in the right way, and that's all part of prompt engineering. ChatGPT 3 and we came 4, now 5 just came out, and to understand how these models are so efficient and good at answering is essentially think of any of these models as being trained on the entire internet. The ChatGPT, they publicized what it was trained on. It was a common crawl, which is pretty much the entire internet. It then took text from things like Wikipedia. They took books, digitalized them, and trained the model on that. So it builds this giant database of information from the internet and other things in there, and it creates these links between all the words in there. And when you query something, it's behind the scenes, it's using this, think of it as a graph that it's built, and a really sophisticated autocomplete that takes your question and then goes to this graph that has the entire internet on it and all the word relations, and comes up with the answer to that. That's kind of, I'm trying to simplify it, but along the way, the models have gotten better because they've used more and more data, and they've become more efficient in auto completing and that. And smaller models will come out and they will be trained on not as much data, and that's a way to have the models be faster but more specific to a certain industry. So you may see somebody create a model that is for doctors. Well, it didn't train on the entire internet. It may have trained on part of the internet that dealt with medical information, and then it was supplemented by a lot of medical books and things like that. That stuff that wasn't in ChatGPT or GPT 3 or 4 or 5 and that. So that's kind of how these models work, and trying to make you understand why they're so good at answering. The data definitions that I'll talk through here is unstructured data. Think of PDF, docs, text. Those are what a lot of us are familiar with when using ChatGPT. We may upload a PDF and ask questions about it. And for this conversation, we're going to call that the old school way. The new school way, instead of using text, is using semi-structured data like CSV, JSON, Excel files. That's what we're going to talk about today. In addition, using ChatGPT or Copilot or data agents in Fabric on structured data. This is relational databases. That's when I talk about structured data. It could be SQL tables with rows and columns, Oracle with rows and columns in there. This is the new approach that's happening within Microsoft Fabric, and other products are starting to see how they can ask questions on the structured data and not just limit it to the text or PDF documents. Model definitions. The RAG methodology is a way to improve the performance of a large language model. So what happens is instead of just relying on what the large language model has been trained on, you're passing documents in real time to it. So when you ask a question and you upload a document, you're using the RAG methodology because it's passing your question and the document uploaded to the large language model to come up with a better answer. And that could be very real time and efficient. On that, there are some trade-offs. It could be slower, but a lot of solutions use the RAG methodology instead of the fine-tuning. Fine-tuning is you take a model and those documents you want to use, you can create a new model, train it with those documents in there. But the problem is it's not real time. If I can't use fine-tuning to ask questions of something that may have happened today because the model may have been built a week or two ago, and so fine-tuning has its purposes, but the problem is you have to constantly rebuild the model, which could be very costly, and the model is going to be dated on there. So those are the two approaches that we'll talk about as we go through here. If we look at the fine-tuning, digging into a little bit more what I said, you can see that I take this massive data set, which could be just a bunch of documents, or I could have it could be the internet, it could be a database, and I'm going to train the large language model, and then I'm going to supplement that with a bunch of, in this case, domain specific data set. It could be a bunch of documents, and it's going to all feed into the model and train it. And this is going to be repeated every week, every month, every few months in there. Where the RAG methodologies you see here is it's training it. You could take the ChatGPT 5 model and you're going to make that model better by in real time submitting documents to it. And part of the efficiency is when you may have hundreds of thousands of documents that could be potentially used to send to the large language model, but when you ask a question, the question is parsed and it uses a thing called a vector database to look at the most relevant documents for that question. So instead of sending all 100,000 documents, it'll pick out a handful and send that along to the large language model to get the better answer. So, and I'll make all these slides available so you can remember better of this, but I always try to explain this at a high level so people get some idea of how these things are all working. And this is an idea of if you're using Azure AI Document Intelligence, that is used in part with a bot that will take those documents and create that vector database I talked about, and then allow you to ask a question and pull out only the relevant documents and send it along with the question to, in the bottom here, the Azure OpenAI ChatGPT. And this is a graphic representation of what I was talking about. So a question is, are custom ChatGPTs considered fine-tuning? Yes, if I understand your question correctly, you can use a ChatGPT and you select the models now. There's options, and each of those models was fine tuned on there. Now somebody could say, I'm going to take the ChatGPT 3 model and I'm going to fine tune it with more medical stuff and create my own model on that, and they'll call it whatever they want. The James Serra medical model in there. But ChatGPT has a bunch of different models. All of them have been fine-tuned for specific purposes. And you'll see, you go to ChatGPT, you can get these add-ons, and those are using models that are fine-tuned for, what was one I saw the other day for it was a movie database in there, and they fine-tuned it to better answer questions about movies. Today we're going to talk about using GenAI on semi-structured and structured data. There's a lot of other use cases that you can use, and I can probably spend days going over all these on there. But those first two in bold, but you can think of using GenAI for things such as sample data creation. A lot of people use ChatGPT or Copilot for that now. I could use it for anomaly detection on there. I could use it. I can even get into master data management and mapping fields, and so many ways of using it on structured and semi-structured data that are just starting to appear. So this area is going to get much bigger over the next coming years. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of what this can do. And part of that is ChatGPT on semi-structured data. Now, ChatGPT definition, because people talk about it, but sometimes I see they don't really understand it. The GPT means generative, means creating new content. That's generative. It's pre-trained, as I said before. It could be on a fine-tuned and it created some model, and that's what ChatGPT is going to use, and it transform it, which means it's problem solving. It's taking your question and coming up with an answer, and that's how. And it does that through understanding relationships between the words. Like I was saying, it's like kind of like a graph and a sophisticated autocomplete, and that's what GPT is. And then when they say ChatGPT, chat means it's just a bot on top of this model, an interface that you can use. There's the two most popular ones are ChatGPT and Bing. And I put a little bit of what they can do here. You can see for this presentation is important on what they can support if you upload stuff. So you can see both of them can upload a lot of things here. So I can upload semi-structured things that I'm focused on today. It could be the CSV files. You see the spreadsheets listed here, Excel, JSON. Those are the important parts for today's conversation. There's usually a upload size max of 50, and there's ways around that. There's enhanced versions of some of these products that you can purchase on there, and so I wanted to list and compare the two. And you may say, well, why did you choose ChatGPT when you're from Microsoft? Why didn't you choose Bing or Copilot, I should say? And it's just because, well, I don't want to always do everything in Microsoft. I want to be a little different sometimes. Plus, the Copilot features that I'm showing today, or that use ChatGPT, ChatGPT, you can do all this stuff for free, and in Copilot, for some of it, you'll have to pay for it to upload certain files in there. So I wanted to make it available. Show what I'm showing you for you to be able to do for free. There's also, of course, plenty of other models I listed, or options that are listed at the bottom left on here, but these are the two I'm going to focus on today, with ChatGPT being the demo that I'm going to cover. So I'm going to jump to a demo here. I'm going to use ChatGPT on semi-structured data. There's also a pretty good site, Ask On Data, that they've fine-tuned a model to work better on semi-structured data. ChatGPT is getting there to be as good as other products and use it for free, but it can hallucinate. It can go off rails at times in there, and we'll see how it goes in this demo, because I never know how it's going to do, because it's always different. So let me pull up my ChatGPT. Okay, let me pull this up here. All right, so this is where I'm going to take some semi-structured data. So I'm going to upload a document. Oh, pardon me. Don't know why it locked me out at an inappropriate time. 774, but no problem. All right, so uploading a document here. I'm going to go to demos. Let's see. And I have this file here, the small file that has a 75 movies to it. And I'm going to say, well, tell me about this file. This could be a CSV, in addition to be a CSV file, it could be an Excel file or JSON file on here. So it comes up, looks at that CSV file, displays it here, and then tells me a little bit about it on here. And this is always different. So sometimes it gives a sample data, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't tell me how many moves on here, but here it was a little more thorough. You can see on the top left, I'm using ChatGPT 5 model on here. And then I could say something like, okay, list the movies out. I'm going to cut and paste a question here. List the movies that have a rating of 10 or above, and then also show the T-SQL that you're using. So this could be also helpful for training people who are not familiar with T-SQL. So it came back and it said, there's 6 movies that are rated 10, and this is the SQL I used on this. And I'm trying to show, a lot of people are not aware you can do all this stuff on a CSV file or Excel file that you uploaded in here. And getting to the gist of it is where we can start cleaning and enriching the data. So I can say, change the sci-fi that's listed in here. If it pulled up some of these, it said sci-fi. Well, maybe I want it to say science fiction instead. And so here it goes. And now it cleaned the data and it says science fiction instead of just sci-fi. And here it's saying, would you like a downloadable file? Sometimes it'll actually have a little link here that allows you to download it. Because the idea is maybe you want to do all this cleaning and then eventually download it and use it on here. So think of how much more efficient this can be than manually doing all this, or trying to write some script or formula in Excel to do all this. Now you're just doing this chatbot to do this cleaning, and then you can enriching it. And here's where you can save a real lot of time. I'm going to put a question in here. I want you to add 2 more columns, leading actor and leading actress. And I want you to go into the internet and use Wikipedia or IMDb to find the answer and then update the data set here. And I'm going to tell it to use the first 10 rows. This way it runs faster. It could also go a little crazy if you try to do a really large one. It's getting better with the new model. I've even used it with deep research, and it works pretty well most of the time, but sometimes it could come back with just blanks in the columns instead. So this is why I say we're not quite there yet of making this perfect, but it could actually work for a lot of use cases. And I would say try it out before you go and imagine manually trying to go and look all this up on here. So this is where you can see it's choosing to take a little bit longer to look. So ChatGPT 5 now, instead of just going in and answering with the model, with a one model, it'll go out and choose different models and take longer to think on here. So this one took a whole minute, and you can see here on the top left, I could decide faster answers or longer answers on that I want. I've taken a little bit of risk here that it's not going to take too long on here. In my experience, it usually takes under a minute. So this is good. So here it came back, and you can see it added 2 columns, leading actress and an actor and actress, and it did it correctly. Yay for that. Gives me some more information about it. So now imagine doing this on a thousands or 10,000s of rows in there. All the time saving this is going to be between trying to manually do it here. I'll do another one where I'm going to say, let's see how well this goes. for the first 10 rows, I want you to go and add a column called the movie gross and look this up in those areas in Wikipedia and IMDb and see what this looks like. That one went really fast on that. So you can see it got the movie gross. That does look correct. This one it couldn't find. Sometimes it'll tell you that it couldn't find it on here. It didn't in this case. Sometimes it'll put it in dollar signs. Sometimes it won't. I can correct it and tell it to do that. You see it kept the leading actor and actress on that. Sometimes those go away. And then you can see I have this little download button here that I can click and get that new spreadsheet with it done on that. So good thing it worked pretty well on this. And if it doesn't have that little link, you can ask it a question. Like you can tell it in a question to give me the download link on that. So that is a quick demo on using ChatGPT on that. I've done this on Copilot and it works just as well, if not better sometimes. On here, you may choose different models, or you can get add-ins that will use different models that may work better on this. The people, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's created a model that works really well on Excel on that. So look for that if you can't get what you need on the regular ChatGPT. So this is usually eye-opening to a lot of people. They didn't realize you can do this on things like the CSV files in there. So in your mind, you should be thinking, wow, look at all the time savings I can do. I'm getting so tired of taking a spreadsheet and trying to generate extra columns and looking up data results from them. Now I can just use ChatGPT for all that. All right, cool. Jumping back to our deck here. Now let's talk about using Fabric, Microsoft Fabric, a feature called Data Agent. It used to be called AI Skill. At Microsoft, we love renaming things. And this is working on structured data. Okay, so let's, and I'll pause there for a few questions. One is, for enterprise ChatGPT, can you do a similar search to extend a data set by searching internal cloud data? Yeah, you could. If you have, there's a ChatGPT version that you can purchase that you use inside of your own company on that. And with that, you can specify that you want to use, and this is the RAG methodology, you want to use certain documents. And it most times customers build their own interface to that. So they won't use the ChatGPT default, because with the ChatGPT, you'd have to actually upload those documents. You couldn't tell it to go find those documents in some local file area and that. So you'd want to build your own bot that takes the question and automatically goes and finds, uses other documents to help you answer that. So in short, yes, you can use that. Create your own custom bot and use a RAG methodology for that. Another question by Don. He's got a few of them. Let me pop at one of them. Using, there's listed on there. We ran into a number of challenges. How much context do we need to feed to LM so it can understand the structured data better? So this is where the challenge with just using the public ChatGPT is it could mess up and not give you a right answer, and very confidently give you a wrong answer in there. So this is where you may want to create your own model on that, and you may want to train it on your own data to make it more accurate. There's a lot of things and knobs you can turn to make a model give a better answer. But behind the scenes, you can give it hints, which you'll see when I'm getting into Data Agent. So you can automatically give it hints, just text hints. You can automatically always upload certain documents in there. So there's a lot of things you can do, and you can take the model and fine tune it to give a better answer based on your company, your industry. You may want to train it with your own documents to make it more accurate on that. All right, so hopefully that helped. Let me keep going, and I'll get to the other answers in another pause that I'll do. I want to make sure I cover most of this material. So for those who are not familiar with Fabric, I imagine everybody here is, but Fabric, in short, has a bunch of different features that is all in one place. And one of those, and each of these products within Fabric has features, and one of the features I'm talking about is the data agents. And this is in public preview. It's GenAI on your data. It allows you to ask a question and get an answer that is using the structured data that's sitting in a lakehouse or a warehouse or a semantic model on there. You can also you can build this inside of Fabric, but you can also publish it out to Copilot Studio or M365 Chat or Azure IA Studio and use it through that and supplement it and make it even better. And I'll show you what that looks like. Think of it as you're creating this tool that is going to work on the bottom right, a lakehouse, warehouse, semantic model, and also a event house. And it's going to be then, if you go to the top part of that, it's going to be published to various different other products. So you don't have to, you're not limited to using data engines just within Fabric. You can use it within these other tools on here. And you can imagine on the bottom here, that's expanding to other things. And I'll talk about that at the end in there. But right now it's those 4 things. If we look at a high level, how this works is you create a data engine, which I'll demo. You're going to choose the databases and the tables that are going to be asked the question. So you don't have to use everything in a database for all your tables. You specify which ones to use, and then you configure, and configuring is making the answers more accurate by adding hints and sample SQL queries, as I'll show. And once you get it working, then you can publish it out to be used in, on the right hand side, things like Fabric and Studio and Teams on that. A little bit more of how this flows, because my mind, I love pretty pictures, and this is what I use to help explain it, to help me understand and explain a little bit better, is data agents is using the RAG methodology. It's going to take the question you ask and all of your chat history, so it remembers what you've been talking about. It's going to take the table metadata of the tables you selected. It's going to take any model notes or hints that you are going to enter behind the scenes that I'll show, and it's going to take example queries and answers that you put in there, and it's going to use all of that information and send it to the large language model. The large language model then is going to take all that information and generate a SQL statement, and it knows the table metadata, so it can take that and hints and everything else to come up with the query, the proper query, and then it's going to execute that query on the data tables you selected, and it's going to come back and show you the results, along with optionally the SQL that it's used to get those results. And that's it in a nutshell on that. So I'm going to demo it here now. On the bottom here, most of what I'm showing is on that link, and you can follow it on your own if you like, step by step. So going to Fabric here, I'm in a workspace, and if I hit create and I go to AI, let's still call it AI skill data agent here, and I'm going to create another data agent. I'll call it Fabric Cafe. And now it's going to jump into the workspace where it's going to allow me to start building out this data agent. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is say, well, what source are you going to use to ask questions on? And in here, I've created a lakehouse, and that's got a bunch of tables that I want to use. And let me put it. It's going to be my good old AdventureWorks, and the link to the site for this shows you how to create the AdventureWorks data warehouse in here, so you don't have to build it on your own. It gives you easy script instructions here. So here's this lakehouse that I'm going to use, and then it's going to say, okay, what tables do you want to use from that lakehouse? Because you likely don't want to use everything on here. So this is a star schema on here. So I'm going to choose these tables here, and this is a big important part because the model will run a lot faster if you limit the tables here, but if you don't select the right tables in here, you're going to start getting wrong answers on there because it's not going to have the right data to look up in there. So you want to be really certain you're picking the right tables here, and in my case there should be 10 of them. Yep, 10 of them. So I'm going to use those, and that's it. So first thing I'll do is let me start asking questions of this here. What is the most sold product? So if you remember that what I just showed you, it's going to take that question, it's going to take table metadata, and it's going to go out to the large language model. They don't tell you which language model is moving behind the scenes, but there's one that is fine-tuned to work better with SQL tables on that. So it comes up with water bottle on here, and you can say, well, let me see what the query is, and there you can see this is what it did, quantity sold. But you may go like, well, actually, when I'm asking about most sold, it's not quantity that I want. I want it on total sales revenue and not order quantity. So how do I fix that? Well, this is where the AI instructions come into play, and think of it as a hint. As I come in here in AI instructions, I can say, whenever I mean most sold, I'm talking about sales revenue and not order quantity. So now if I go ask the question again, it should come up with a different answer on that. And instead of using total quantity sold, the query should be different. And it worked. It came back with a different answer. And there's a sales revenue. If I look at that query right here, you can see it's total sales revenue. So yay, it's working so far. Same thing. The large language models are not always consistent. So sometimes you get different answers. So I think the last 8 or 9 times I've done this, it's been accurate, but every once in a while it'll pop in with something different. So now let's try something different. Let's say, what is the average sales amount per order by territory? So again, passing this question, the hint now. So you eventually will grow out this hint and add a lot of things in here, because as a developer in here, you're going to go and think of the most common questions people are going to ask, and you're going to want to keep putting hints in there so the answers come back more accurate. So you can see this come back on here, but this is actually pretty close to the answer. It's maybe not sorted in the way I want on here. So if sometimes this comes back with numbers instead of Australia, it comes up with the country code on here. So this is pretty close, but I would rather have this sorted in descending order in here. So what I can do is put an example query here, and I can say, if somebody asks this question, what is the average selling quantity in here? I can put the exact SQL that it should use here, and it'll validate what I just put in there. And once it validates it, I can then ask the question again. And let me try it. Now, this is where I sometimes have to clear it, but let's see what happens. So now it should pass in that sample query and come up with the answer. Now, it didn't. This is something I learned just last week, is you see there's no steps completed. This is because it used what was in cache and came up with the same answer in there. So what I want to do is clear the chat, because it's using the prior history to give the same answer, because it's thinking, oh, you used it doesn't realize you had to put a sample query in there. So it's a little quirk that you got to be aware of. So let me retry it after I cleared the cache. So it's going to actually go and hit the LLM model, not use what it already came back with before. And you can see here it actually worked, and the numbers are different. So I didn't dig into it, but it must have not used the proper query. And if I look at this now behind the scenes, you can see that's it pulled in the query that I put in there as a sample. And so you could put in a query, a question that's not quite the same, but very close, and it may use that. It wouldn't use the exact same query, but it's using it to help it come up with a better query. So it behind the scenes is taking that query and modifying it a bit to come up with an accurate answer. So even if they ask a question that's not exact, it could still prove very helpful and make things more accurate. And that's it. You can see how it works. And then what you would do after you do is you publish this out and put a good description on here, and then you can publish it out to be used in those other platforms as I mentioned on there. And you can see once this is published, I have this URL, and I can cut and paste that URL and use it in my own code. There's a way that you can publish it directly to Teams or other products that I'm not going to show, but they've made it really easy. And cool. So that's it. Let me go back to my slides here. And I want to show one thing. I haven't set this up yet, but you can publish it into your Copilot in Power BI. And so I can ask a question. It's going to look through all of the reports or data sets and ask you which one you want to use, and then it can generate an answer on here. So this is where it's using not only the data agent, but also using what you've built in Power BI to help with the answer on there. So this is getting really, really awesome and sophisticated with your ability to use data agent along with other features in Power BI in order to help a customer, an end user, go and find the answer on that. All right. You may ask, what's the difference between data agent and just using Copilot directly? Because you can go into Power BI and use Copilot on there without building any data agent, but there's some limitations to that here. One is configuration. With the Copilot, and using it in Power BI or Fabric, it doesn't allow any configuration. Like we were putting in those hints and example SQL queries, you can't do that in there. The use case is I can use Copilot can help you do your work in Fabric, and it can also help you notebook code and database queries in there. But data agent is completely independent, and you can use it outside of Fabric. Where in Copilot in Fabric, it's only in Fabric on there. And then finally, think of the purpose is Copilot in Power BI works against reports and models and updates the report that you're seeing, where data agent is using for ad hoc queries that can go against the lakehouse or warehouse on that. So it's not limited to one specific report or semantic model. So that's a big difference on that. And okay, let's go to some questions. Don had second question. MCP improves the accuracy but doesn't solve the inconsistency. Some quantitative questions we want 100% accuracy. So this is very important. If you want 100% accuracy, don't use GenAI because you will never get 100% accuracy. So I'm glad you asked this question, because if a customer says that, I'm going to say, let's get off of GenAI. Let's go build a Power BI report that is going to be 100% accurate, because we're going to use queries that we know are accurate, and we're going to thoroughly test it, and we're going to get the same answer every time. Where in GenAI, you may get different answers on that. So whenever it's 100% accuracy, you're gonna get away from GenAI on that. However, many times a customer doesn't need 100% accuracy. They're not reporting the numbers to Wall Street. It could be fine if the numbers aren't 100% accurate. it could even be fine if it gives a wrong answer, if you know it's a wrong answer, and re-ask the question in a different way. So this gets really tricky, because I've seen customers, and myself included, where I forget that ChatGPT can be completely wrong, and it comes with an answer, and I'll just take it verbatim and then find out later, oh, that answer was wrong. You can say double check it, you can do all these things, but it still may be wrong on that. One day eventually we'll get there where we never have wrong answers, but for now, 100% accuracy, don't use GenAI. And then third was LLM has difficult time to join multiple tables on there. So if you're referring to what I was showing with the up in ChatGPT uploading CSV, yeah, you couldn't upload multiple CSVs and ask them to combine it. There are some third-party products that you can do that, but for now it's limited to one file and doesn't understand creating relationships between different files. That may come one day, but it's not there now in ChatGPT. So here I ask, can we do the same with Copilot Studio? Yeah. Well, Copilot Studio can't, what I showed you, you can't build it in Copilot Studio, but you can use a data agent and then create it and use it within Copilot Studio to supplement it to do other things. So maybe in Copilot Studio, you want it to not only use the data agent for the question, but do other things, pull data from other places and combine it all into one. And that's what Copilot Studio can do. It's just expanding on data agent in there. Another question, data agents for end users is an interesting concept. Just can't say replacing dashboards for now. Yeah. So great. It's not a question, it's a statement, and I agree 100%. If you need 100% accuracy, or if you need to present it in a certain database or format or chart, you're going to want to go and just create something in Power BI. You can, in ChatGPT and Copilot, say, okay, take that answer and display it in a graph and a chart, but it may not be accurate. It may not look the way you want. You can keep prompting it to eventually get it, but it may be easier just creating a Power BI report for that. And Joe says, you were using a trial version, and so am I. I can't create an admin. So behind the scenes, to get it to it, you have to turn it on. And I don't know if I have the slide. I may have the slide in here that there's a switch that you have to set. Here it is. That you have to go into the tenant settings and switch that on. So that may be the problem. And then you have to have a certain SKU type for it to work on there. And if it's too low, it won't work. Now, they've changed that to work with everything, I thought. So I'd have to be curious to see if you have this set that doesn't work. That could be, reach out to me or create a support ticket, or look, or use ChatGPT or Copilot to put your error message in there, and somebody else on the internet, I'm sure, has answered and give you it. So that's kind of making an answer with what I've been talking about. So that's good. All right. So we got 5 minutes to go. A couple of industry use cases just to bring up on how you can use this with other forms of data. So we're showing semi-structured and structured, also using with unstructured. Imagine you're a healthcare organization and you want to improve patient outcomes. So you can take patient records, clinical notes that are in text and combine it with structured data, such as diagnostic codes and treatment history. So think of it as I'm taking all this unstructured data, those lab reports, and I'm building some solution to do this, because you can't do this in ChatGPT or data agents, because they're specific to structured or semi-structured or unstructured, and they don't do all three yet. And I can build a solution that's going to do use all three of those to come up with a better treatment plan on that. Or maybe I'm marketing, or I like fraud. I want to take emails, so text, transcripts, text, legal documents, text or unstructured, and then I want to take structured data, transaction logs, financial logs, and I want to use all that in a to answer a query to detect fraud on that. So I even got the imagine using it for baseball and there, but jumping ahead to what this would look like in a architecture is I would ask so you would build this bot using a Microsoft tool or others, and the way this would work is I can take a user question. It's going to use the vector database. Because when I talked about document intelligence, it's going to take your question. I covered this before, and you may have a file folder that's got thousands of documents in there. Which are the documents that are most relevant to the question? That's what a vector database does. And so it's going to pull out a handful of those documents, and it's going to send that to a large language model along with the question. It's also, you could have a vector database on CSV files, so semi-structured data, and they could pull out the appropriate CSV files and send that to large language model. In addition, this solution you build should use the data agent. It could send the question via data agent and call that API I showed you, and the data agent can go behind the scenes and get create this query, return the results, pass those results into the large language model along with any other system instructions you may want to give. And all of that is now being fed to the large language model to give a more accurate answer because you're using all sorts of data, structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data on that. So there's no product that I'm aware of that can do all of this. I will say that data agents works on structured data, but you will hear in a conference, the FAB conference coming up, the ability to use it on unstructured data too. So it's getting to it's not, I won't say it's fully as good as this diagram yet, but it's getting there, and eventually we'll get there to be able to to build this solution within Fabric, where right now you'd have to like Copilot Studio or AI Foundry to build all this out. All right. So we're near the end. There's some helpful blogs that you can find in this deck. I mentioned my book. If you want to want a free copy of my book, send me an email, the bottom left, and just say you attended the session, and I'll send you a PDF copy for free on that. And any other questions, feel free to reach out to me and ask them. And a couple more we have here is I'll answer. Did you say data agent is fine-tuned to handle text to SQL specifically? Can you elaborate on that? So the data agent is only going to work on the structured data for now. It will work in the unstructured data. Essentially, what that'll work is it'll say you can specify a data lake that has a bunch of text data in there, documents, and it'll start using that too. So that's coming in the future. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, James. What a great session, and what a great prize for attendees. Yeah, just guys, don't forget to message James for the copy of his book. It's fantastic.
And maybe put an Amazon review if you like it or don't like it. As I would appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Just uh, I know Sarah is just talking about your book, and how
Oh, thanks.
she learn from you. That is interesting. Yeah, I want to also have that PDF. Awesome. Cool. Guys, if you've got any question, you can still ask. I'm gonna share my screen again. James, that was great. That was great. You covered from the fundamental things, just definitions. Sometimes, people ask, hey, what is the difference between LLM and ChatGPT? What is RAG? What is fine tuning? What is, it is good to have everything in one place, compare them, and just understand what we're talking about. That is fantastic. Thank you very much. I really
Yeah,
like the way that you present the content, and just breaking them, break them down to the small pieces, and we can everyone can understand it.
yeah.
And yeah,
Thanks.
Shamim, thank you. Yeah, great session. Cool. So our session with James almost done. Thank you very much. And it is going to be available on our YouTube channel for sure. And you can just rewatch it or share with your network. And just let us know on the meetup group how it did go. And it is going to be very helpful for us. And our next session with Grishma will be on September 19th. It is going to be Friday evening, let's say, 6 p.m. Pacific time, or if you're in Australia time zone, it's going to be your Saturday morning, about securing AI in Fabric, defending ML workloads from advanced cyber threats. And again, sharing the the socials that we've got on YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Microsoft community groups, in also in Microsoft Fabric and the Meetup group. Cool. I don't want to talk that much and make the uh, session longer. Cool. James, if you have anything to add, feel free. If not, we can just wrap up the session and wishing a great weekend for everyone.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And again, if you have any questions, if you want the slide deck, just shoot me an email as well as the book.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Thank you very much and enjoy your